you can swear. Right, Bikini kind of confidence. I'm going to keep like the introduction for me very, very swift. But for anyone that's on here that isn't a one-to-one client, because like I kind of said on like Instagram, these are things that I run monthly for my one-to-one. So they're like the monthly kind of like huddles where we talk about different subjects and we do behind the before and after, which is Becky is today behind the before and after. So a little bit about me, like worked as a personal trainer in person and a nutritionist for over 13 years now, which is pretty crazy. I had a fully booked like one-to-one business, and then COVID shut gyms down, which seems like a long time ago. I mean, World War III is happening now, so we can forget about kind of COVID happening. And then I just kind of like decided that I've always been deeply kind of interested in psychology. I've always kind of found working one-to-one with clients, you can train people as hard as you want in the gym, but maybe they weren't getting the results that they wanted. And I think so much of that comes down to behavioral change and stuff I just really wanted to help clients with. So I ended up actually completing my master's in mental health during lockdown. And then when gyms started to open, I just slowly transitioned fully online and then created Confidently, which is the program I run now, like one-to-one coaching for women who want to lose body fat, get in amazing shape, but at the same time, do so whilst increasing their relationship with food. And then I've also got my group coaching program, Confident in 8, plug that does kick off in September, the next intake for that as well. So there we go. Say hello, Becky. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I think most people know me, hopefully. I'm Becky. So that picture on the left is basically the summary of my journey so far, which is kind of crazy to look at. I'm not very good at stepping back and looking at how far I've come, actually. So this is quite a good exercise even for me. So my journey, I would say, before Callum started pandemic as well. So COVID was definitely a bit of a turning point. First lockdown, spent the majority of time eating a packet of bourbon biscuits every day, supporting local takeaways because we were supposed to be supporting local. So I had a takeaway maybe twice a week and piled on the pounds. And then in September, kind of turned that around, joined the local Slimming World group. We don't talk about that anymore, but it did kind of kickstart a bit of a health and fitness journey, which has culminated in joining Callum last January. So January 2024, I've
Mhm.
been working with you for. So what's that, like a year and a half? God, that's
Yeah,
mad.
it's mad, isn't it? It's like much.
Yeah. So yeah, really excited to talk to you all today about how I've gone from that to that and how we continue. So yeah.
And also like how it wasn't all in one
No, it's been
phase.
years.
And it wasn't, yeah. Which is again, particularly this time of year, I think heading into summer, that's where you're gonna kind of have all the noise around like quick, rapid panic summer's kind of coming. And it's very easy is again, I think sometimes like to look at social media, see results like this, and then really start to, second guess yourself or do rash things. But this didn't happen overnight, like we've said already, what, 17, 18 months, but also like Becky said, she's been training for years before even coming to see me as well. I've gone through like, other kind of coaches as well. So it's not just one set thing.
Fell swoop.
And this is where I think we've got to remember, and this is what I kind of say to all my clients when they come in. So I think when you kind of fill out a check-in form, maybe you've done it in the past, when you've kind of done different kind of programs, that what you usually see is, I want to lose 10 pounds or I want to lose body fat, full stop. And that really isn't the deeper goal. We've got to think about like what fat loss really gives us at kind of like a deeper level. So it's kind of for some people, it might be being able to feel comfortable going swimming with your kids. I've got women I've worked with that won't even get into a swimming costume. It's not also thinking about food 24/7. It is being able to also go out and enjoy food without guilt as well. So it's not just always about macros and calories. And not comparing yourself to other people, like either online or to your friend group or whatever that might be. And that's why, again, we're going to talk about a lot about motivation because I think, Becky, your question that you get asked a lot is probably how do you stay motivated, right? I think it's your biggest.
Yeah. Most asked question in my DMs is, how do you stay so motivated? How do you get up every day at 5 a.m.? So yeah, more than happy to answer some of that.
Yeah. And that I think that's like really important, but I think it comes back to this and also not comparing as well. Like, Becky's got a different lifestyle from like other people, and everyone's going to be on their own different paths and journeys with kind of fitness. And I think this is a big one as well. I think Becky's like misses consistency in terms of I don't actually think you've missed a check-in.
Nope, never miss a check-in. Very rarely miss a workout.
Yeah, I don't think you missed anything actually, to be fair. I think it's like 100% on the amazing Strider stat that I have.
I
Uh,
hate it. No, but I think even though the biggest change that I saw with you was even when things weren't going right, I still checked in, which was different to previous coaches. So previous coaches, I think I felt quite guilty if I ate chocolate or I'd like change my food diary or I wouldn't really tell the truth. Whereas I think when I started with Cal, we had such a good relationship from the start, and you kind of have such an emphasis on like mental health and stuff and the goals were different. It was you. I remember when we first started, you were like, "Wouldn't you've been counting calories now for years?" And I was like, "Yeah." And it was like really low calories as well for like my height and stuff. And you're like, "Right, scrap that. We're going to take pictures." And I remember being so panicked. But it worked. And actually that's the biggest thing when you like when you were talking just then about like why you do it or like your values or what you were actually trying to do. Yes, I wanted to lose fat, but I also just wanted to stop obsessing with
mhm.
my body, stop like obsessing over calories, stop obsessing about the fact that if I missed a gym workout, I know I don't miss one, but now if I do miss one, like it's fine, it's planned in, it's like on, like it's all fine. And yeah, I think that's been the biggest shift because actually I genuinely don't miss anything, even when it's gone wrong, which is key.
Yeah, and I think that links to the first thing as well, doesn't it? Because I think you sign up to a lot of things and they will have it as if fat loss is the most important thing.
Hmm.
So you will sign up and straight away it's here's your calorie target, here's your macro target, off you go. Whereas actually, how do you want to live your life? What is important to you? Sorry, someone's just joining. That's why I said I can't do two things at once. It's my brain.
It's okay, you're a man.
Um, and then I can't really have a comeback with all women, can I? So I'm just gonna. And then I think the other thing with like the calorie counting side of stuff is I will say to everyone that calorie counting isn't bad unless you are anxious about stepping away from it.
Hmm.
It's a tool like anything else. It can be really, really useful. So you've got two sides of the fence sometimes. You got a lot of coaches shouting that if you count calories, you've got an eating disorder, or if you want to lose body fat, you've got an eating disorder, which is just obviously ridiculous or it's really disordered. But on the flip side, obviously having some time away from it equally can be healthy
Hmm.
and just making sure that we have these different phases, which again is what you've done, right? As we've led into obviously your 18th holiday of the year. Um, we're probably being a little bit more specific around numbers and goals around that. But
Yeah.
so had occasions where we just kept it a little bit more steady, which means things like Christmas you can go and enjoy it right without distress or
And the muscles won't build if I'm constantly in a deficit. And I think that's what I've really noticed. I think the reason we did this webinar was because I came back from Bali and I was absolutely buzzing about how I looked in that bikini. Like,
Mhm.
I was literally like, oh my God, like it's completely worked. All the months has been paid off. Look at my muscles. And that's what I was obsessed with. I wasn't bothered by the fact that, like, even though I was on my period when I was in Bali, so I was a little bit bloated some of the days or felt like whatever. It was the fact that I could see that all my hard work had paid off. And actually, the strength wouldn't have come if we hadn't have done all those maintenance phases because I just wouldn't have been able to fuel it. Do you know
and
what I
it's
mean? Like,
and it's the unsexy parts, right? Because I think
really unsexy.
with fat loss, you see it week after week. You can kind of like it tends to be particularly when someone first starts. I think with the muscle building stuff, you can be getting everything right, and then you're going to look in the mirror and be like, actually, I look the same.
Mhm. I think it's all about mindset as well. That's what I've flipped with you. Like, I think whereas once I used to think, oh my God, this is a disaster. I've gone out and had a burger, or oh God, I've had some chocolate. Whereas now I've flipped that mindset of like, oh, it's a maintenance day
Mm-hmm.
because I can just have those calories and it's fine. And just really remembering like why you're doing it. But I think you do need to have those phases where you chill a bit because then it just because otherwise if you were in a constant calorie deficit, I'd be so miserable.
But you don't want to be either. Like I said, your body
Yeah.
likes maintenance for everything, and also when we go back to the goals, like enjoying food out, enjoying time with family, like enjoying the experiences away without again stressing over things. That's really, really important. And like we said, the reason you've got to that goal is because, and I kind of done a post about it the other day where a lot of people kind of say to me, I know what I'm doing, I'm just not doing it. And I'm just kind of like, well, you don't know what you're doing because if you knew what you're doing, you would break free.
Just do it.
Yeah, or also you break free from perfectionism. You wouldn't be beating yourself up for one small mistake. I think when people say that they know what they're doing, they think they've got to be perfect.
Hmm.
And that's the hardest bit. And sometimes that's what kind of like coaching is, right? Is just kind of keeps you nice and kind of grounded and steady when, you have those wavy moments, which, you've had throughout, the experience as well, right?
I had quite a few wavy moments this year.
Yeah, but everyone does, and like I said, it's why I've got a coach myself that I speak to. It's the same kind of thing, and it just keeps you kind of like straight,
Yeah.
which I think is really important. And I think that kind of like leads to again when we look at any level of kind of behavioral change. So this kind of links quite nicely to the motivational kind of like question that you've got. There's three main things that tend to lead to behavioral change. So is it important to you? So what will it change about your life? Do you really actually want to do it? Is it going to actually change your day to day? Like, and that's why the kind of like the value stuff is so important. As in, can you visualize? Right, it's not just fat loss. How is it going to, change how you turn up in relationships? How is that going to change how you feel? Like yourself, like feeling confident on holiday. How's it going to influence work life and everything else that kind of comes with it?
Hmm.
For most people, the importance is there, right? I feel like that's for most people when they sign up, that's all they start a fat loss kind of like journey. It's there. I think they just kind of don't link it to the other things that they care about. I think that's usually what's missing. With the second part, that tends to be where people have been kicked in the balls slash vagina along the way, right? With different things that they've kind of done through failed experiences with dieting. Um, Again, jumping from like fad to fad, and the confidence is kind of lacking a little bit. And they actually can't believe that they can lose weight. And I find that's the biggest thing that actually holds people back. It's the biggest things that holds people back from reaching out for coaching as well, right? Because there's lots of people that maybe don't necessarily know what they're kind of doing or kind of like poor advice out there. And I'm not, yeah, that can kind of cause dysfunctional relationships. And I'm not saying Slim and World's
It's got its purpose for some people.
100%, yeah. So it's got its purpose, but I just think it's again, if you don't learn the other stuff that kind of comes with it, that's where the problem is. So, but it's been a great starting point for you, right? And it's kind of part of the
Yeah, 100%.
process. And then obviously the last one is, are you ready? Which, I think again, people wait for the perfect time, which you
There's
can,
never a right time. And I always think like just make one change. Even if you make a few small changes, they all add up. I think what my problem was before I found you, and even actually now when I found you and I was trying to be perfect, I'm such a perfectionist, as you know. We love a to-do list. We love ticking everything off. It needs to be tick, tick, tick. I've
yeah,
definitely had to let go of that because it's much better to get like I don't know, 5 days out of the seven like it's consistency. Everything comes down to consistency. And that's what me and Cal talk about in every check-in every week. We talk about the same things because it's like, yeah, you've done the same thing this week. It's just like learning that it all just adds up. It is actually quite unsexy and quite boring, if I'm
Mhm.
honest, the things that
Yeah,
you
but
need to do for it to work.
I'm really, really fun.
Yeah, you're really fun, obviously, and
So
the
that's
dog's
that's
good.
what makes it. That's what makes no, but exactly that it is the boring stuff. But that's why it's easy to kind of like
The
question yourself,
noise, like you're always looking for a quick fix, and like you just have to kind of ignore that.
And the problem is our brains love novelty. It's human nature. Like we do
Mm-hmm.
like new kind of like shiny stuff. And it's again sometimes like playing around with that. That's where the phases can help as well, like breaking your goals kind of down.
Hmm.
It's different phases. So you can kind of play around with psychology. But like you said, lots of people, if you're waiting for the perfect time, by definition, that's going to be an end date. Because if you can't navigate things when life is chaotic,
Hmm.
which let's face it, is all the time. All you're basically saying to yourself is you might have a short window where you say it's perfect, but as soon as life gets busy, you're going to lose those results. So you've got to have, and that's why again having little range targets, having non-negotiables that you can hit regardless of the situation is really important. And that's why it's stop relying on motivation and willpower. That's good, isn't it? I've got a BTEC in musical theatre, if anyone didn't know. So it's moments like that I just feel like
I stopped him doing an improvised dance at this point, so it's all good, guys.
I was going to dress up and everything, but you wouldn't. But this, right? So many people say, how many times do you wake up in the morning, your alarm goes off, and you don't want to go to the gym?
Oh my God, so many. This morning, actually. Literally this
Actually, you
morning.
posted about it, didn't you?
I posted about it. It took me an extra 10 minutes. That was more because of the short thing, to be fair. But yesterday I was exhausted. But I would say that motivation and willpower is a very small reason as to why it's been successful.
Hmm.
Obviously, I'm motivated in that I want to good, feel more confident. But willpower, I mean, Callum knows more than anyone, I really struggle with willpower. When it comes to snacks and food, that's always been my downfall. I can like tick every other box, like water every day, does like I can do that. I can do my steps, I can do the workouts, because actually it's now become such a habit that it's ingrained into me that it feels weird if I don't do it. And actually, my entire life, and actually, it sounds bad, like when you see certain things on social media and stuff of like, or even when I say it to my friends, like, oh, my whole life revolves around the gym. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I see it as a really positive thing. I
Hmm.
see it as like I'm putting myself first because I know it really helps my mental health. I know it sets me up for the day. People think I'm crazy doing it in the morning, but I'm like, I've got a really busy job. And I always have gone to bed quite early. So it fits me. And I'm not saying everyone should get up at 5 a.m. because that's a very Becky Hipkiss thing. But like you just need to find what fits you and then fit it around your life. And I think it's actually a really positive thing if you make your life revolve around something that makes you healthy and confident, whatever that looks like. And obviously it doesn't have to be the gym. It could be like your own movement that you find like Pilates or yoga or going for a walk or anything like that. Um, but I would say the discipline has come just from ingraining it so much into habit. And I'm hoping I'm going to do the same now. That's my next step on the journey is doing the same with food. And again, that's all around kind of discipline and mindset, I think, because I'm not motivated to eat a kiwi. Like I don't look at a kiwi and think, oh my God, I really want to eat a kiwi. Like I look at the chocolate and think, oh, I really want to eat the chocolate. But the discipline gets and like changing the mindset of like why I'm eating it. So that's been a big thing. So as we focused on the nutrition, so I kind of like nailed the exercise bit. And then as we focused on the nutrition, which is what I really struggle with, mostly because I can't avoid snack corner at work or I'm quite an emotional eater. So if I'm stressed, I'll like reach for the chocolate. What I found on the lead up to Bali was that I'd just switched it in my head of like, why am I eating this food? So
Hmm.
I became a bit obsessed with fiber. So that's what I switched it to. So instead of thinking like five a day or oh, I should have this instead of chocolate because it's healthier, I was really thinking about it as like food as fuel and fiber because I really struggle a little bit with my tummy and how often I go to the toilet. And it really helped because actually instead of looking at kiwi and thinking, oh, I've got to eat that, I was more thinking like, oh, this is actually going to really help. So yeah, just like little bits like that I found is quite helpful in terms of like discipline as to like why and switching it.
Yeah. And I really like that in terms of like what to add in rather than take out, because I think that's the other mindset.
Mm.
If you see something as restrictive, you
Yeah,
are
I've never not
like,
eaten chocolate. I don't like cut stuff out. I just make a conscious effort to reduce it.
mhm. And it's the same with the gym as well, as in if you feel like you're going there to beat yourself up and you're going there for the wrong reasons, that's the problem with it. I mean, I use little tricks as well in terms of, if I have a day that I really don't want to train, I would just kind of say to myself, right, Cam, you're going to go, but you're just going to do a cycle or you're going to do something nice and light.
Yeah, because you never regret going, do you?
No,
I
but by the
found this
time I'm
even on my
there,
worst day. Like I got there today, and it's my heaviest day on my period today. So I got there and I was cramping. I was feeling really sorry for myself, and I just dropped the weights a little bit and took it a little bit easier.
yeah,
And
and
I
that's
and I
what
didn't. I
consistency is.
enjoyed it.
I think that's exactly what consistency is, and I think like that's the miss kind of representation on like socials that you just see all the kind of like the fancy reels where which they're cool to watch, but everyone training really hard and PBing every single lift, and I mean you train in the pure gym. I've just been like forgot what they're like after being in
I know.
but came in, looked around, and no one's training like that all the time. But you can't. But your progressive overload most of the time is actually just turning up. That's what I say to so many clients. Stuff like
Hmm.
that obviously matters. We want to get stronger over time. We want to make sure we're progressing with our
Pushing the
lifts.
failure. But you can't always have a PB. And again, that was getting that out of my head as well. Like actually just showing up and doing the same weights and pushing it in a way of if you couldn't nudge the weight up, I'd be like, oh, can I do one extra rep? Or can I like hold it for a sec? Do you know what I
But
mean? Like all that sort of stuff.
for muscle building, like I won't go too into that because I think it's a
That's a
big.
whole other that's a whole other webinar.
But you can forget the goal when you're new to the gym. You are going to get these PBs all the time, but you know they are going to stop at a certain point, and that's where you got to remind yourself, right? What is the actual objective? It's building muscle, and things like tension, slowing things down. mind muscle
Yeah.
connection. They're all things that we can kind of work on and progress on as well. But again, we kind of like covered this as well, but this is why like knowing your values, and a lot of what I do with clients is the value alignment stuff. So again, if I asked you what are the five most important values to you, most people when I ask that question can't answer it. So your value should be your driving kind of force or your kind of compass to your decision making. And everyone's going to be slightly different. And if you get this stuff right, this is what can really help with the comparison online, because you can't then necessarily compare because you don't, true to yourself, right? I value X, Y, Z. That person's slightly different. They're doing amazingly well. Good for them. But actually, I care about this, if that kind of makes sense. So understanding why something's important to you and also what your values are really important, but also your values should be stronger than the emotion, which I'll talk about in a minute, because people that don't have this down are more likely to give up when things get hard. So if you don't understand your values and you are just filling out forms and going, I just want to lose 10 pounds, as soon as you have a week where scale weight goes up by 2 pounds, you tend to quit or you jump to the next thing. You chase short-term pleasure over long-term gain. And the thing with motivation, if we look at like, very simple motivation, like we are driven for pleasure and we are looking to avoid pain. That is simple psychology, right? All of us do that. We look for short-term reward and we want to avoid any level of pain. So of course, when Becky's alarm goes off, in the morning and she's in a nice, comfortable bed and she looks at her program and she's got to lift 100 kg on, let's go, I'm doing you shorter, 160 kg on, hip thrust, of course your brain's going to go, yeah, screw that. Of course it is that. That's what we're prone to. So this is the thing with motivation, right? Motives, like when people say they're not motivated, you are motivation. You're motivated to stay in bed.
Mm.
You're motivated to do the short-term pleasure things, and that is just human nature. So the way we bypass that is one, like we said, routine that really helps. So that can help over time, getting you to a bit of a rhythm. But two is really understanding your values and what you care about, and that's a lot of the psychological flexibility stuff that I teach that I won't go too far into. You'll be prone to shiny object syndrome. So that's why like every single thing you see online, you go, oh shit, I should do keto. Oh, I should, lots of people now are looking at Manjaro, right? Which I'm not gonna, it's got its uses, but again, without getting the fundamentals right. But it just shows again where that value stuff is. And when we talk about it in acceptance and commitment therapy, it's known as obeying your emotions rather than following your values. And this is where the child versus adult stuff comes in. So if we look at transactional analysis, but I look at it from an ACT point of view, the child in us, which we all have. So I think when we say child, everyone's like, oh, you're calling me a child. It's like, no, we all have these kind of ego states. So we've got child, adult, parent. But the child in us is the one that bases decisions solely on how we feel in the moment. So again, it's looking for that instant feel good. And if anything feels bad, that's where we kind of want to hide away. So, if something feels good right now, the child wants it. And if it feels bad, the child wants to run away. They're the two kind of things. And the adult, and this is the one that we want to kind of align with our values, and we've got these voices going on in our heads all the time, is the one that's going, what are my deepest values? What is going to be the best thing for me long term, despite the way I'm feeling at the moment? So let's talk about, I don't know, maybe you're new to the gym and you're feeling anxious about it. Despite that anxiety, I still know that I value X, Y, Z. So this is why I'm going to still turn up and, show up. And when we kind of look at that, there's other ways of looking at it, like passengers on the bus and stuff, but everything we do is going to be an away move or a towards move. And again, this comes from like ACT. So a toward move is towards your actions, behaviors that align with, it's actions, behaviors that align with your values. And obviously, like an away one is one that doesn't necessarily. And this is where it's not as black and white as, you can go out for a meal on a Saturday, enjoy time with your family, you might be over your calories, but if your values are still, connection, family, everything else like that aligns, right? That's still towards. And this is what like Becky was saying as well, in terms of how the little things kind of add up. Is just because you make one slip up, it doesn't mean life is over. It's what happens on average over time. If we just get more towards moves over time, and Becky's talking over like 17, 18 months is why she's got that result. And there have been some away ones, right? I'm sure that
Massive.
yeah, there has been like, I'm trying to think of some. Have you got any examples? But I'm trying to think of some, but I don't want to call you
Mm,
out.
no, I'm trying to think. I suppose my away moves is where I've probably so like for instance last November I definitely made I came back from India and I was in a really stressful workplace. I had like loads of pitches on, loads of tenders. I was in a really bad mental health space. And instead of doing some good, what do you call it, towards moves to try and like, help with that and manage it, I kind of did the away ones and instead was binge eating quite a lot. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was showing up at the gym, but not really thinking about what I was doing. I was just like eating on, like, just, kind of fueling myself with loads of crap. And it took me about 2 or 3 weeks to kind of get out of it. So, yeah, there's definitely been like bumps in the road.
And these kind of like voices in our heads, and this is what I kind of like teach a lot with like psychological flexibility. It's that kind of acceptance that negative thoughts and emotions are just part of life. Like we
Hmm.
all have them, right? And it's the same with body image flexibility. You might have, you were saying this morning, I think it was like, your menstrual cycle. Well, I assume
Oh
so.
my God, the shorts. It took me 10 minutes to leave the house, guys, in shorts because I was so scared to go outside in shorts. How ridiculous is that to the gym? I did
No,
it
but I
though.
mean that's
I
where you're
got
going to be.
changed twice, but I did it.
But it's those kind of times where you're going to be most prone to it. So obviously you got the huge hormonal kind of fluctuations, rising progesterone, all of this kind of stuff that's going to influence how we feel. Obviously you got the bloating that comes with it. I've never had a period. I'm going to hold my hands up, but I've read a lot about it in books. So that's why.
Same thing.
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. So I don't know what you ladies are moaning about, really, to be honest. But this is what I mean in terms of like the acceptance and the psychological flexibility with that is kind of going right, kind of that mid-luteal phase and then leading into your period that you're probably going to feel shit. You're probably going to feel, you're probably going to be more vulnerable to negative kind of voices of that inner critic's going to be louder. This is where it's like the toward moves still need to kind of happen, right? And it's kind of like they might look a little bit different. This is why the range targets can be really, really good. It doesn't always have to be optimal, but what's one small thing that you can still kind of do, like, and still kind of get you there? And that kind of voice where I was kind of talking about like the child and the adult, or if we look at it as like another analogy I use quite a lot is the passengers on the bus. So if you imagine your mind is like a bus and you should be the one driving and all your emotions and feelings are in the back, and sometimes they like to jump and try and take the steering wheel and we try and fight them off and everything else like that. You got to go who's driving in that situation when Becky's brain's going, fucking hell, you can't go into the gym and wear that, like what's wrong with you, or just stay at home, or people are going to like, what if this happens, what if, I know I'm trying to think of an example, it's not like
That's literally everything that went through my head this morning. So bang on.
yeah. And it's not like she doesn't have those thoughts. And again, it's not that I don't have those thoughts. I did a post about it the other day. Like, it's not that I don't occasionally struggle with overeating. It's not that I don't go through these periods. It's not that I don't sometimes like skip gym sessions and let it win. But again, it's what you do on average with this stuff. And I think sometimes that's the illusion. This stuff is ongoing, right? The mindset work is something you want to continually develop. The more that you do it, um, I mean, they've shown it in research as well. So your prefrontal cortex and the part of the brain that makes those kind of decisions actually grows in kind of like gray matter. It gets stronger. So when you were talking about like your, routine, I
Hmm.
guarantee if you have brain scans down, that part is actually going to be stronger. So if you talk about, that part of the brain is like a muscle, to get it stronger, you've got to work it like you would in the gym. You can't expect to get stronger in squats without squatting more, right?
Yeah.
How can you expect your mindset to get stronger over time if we're not practicing this stuff pretty much every single day? And again, like the away moves is anything that's kind of like going away from obviously the target as we kind of like spoke about before. So when your actions and behaviors aren't in alignment with your values. So this is the same time when people, they go through phases where they say to me, oh, I just don't care at the moment, or I just don't care about fat loss, or I've got too many things going on in my life. And then the problem is 3 or 4 months down the line, they do care. Do you mean sometimes it just makes us feel more comfortable in the moment saying that because we're trying to escape that short-term pain, and that pain doesn't have to be just leaving your bed because it's warm. It can be the emotional pain of failing. No one likes to feel like that. That we try and kid ourselves and escape to it. That's why again it's value alignment. And I say to my clients, right, okay, you might not care about fat loss, but what about turning up to your family? What about being the strongest person that you can? What about energy levels? What about all these things that we can keep going with? Because the only reason Becky felt so comfortable, on a surfboard in the middle of Bali, which is cool photo, um, is because when she felt shit and she did want to quit and she did want to give up and she did want to like try different things, she didn't. That's it, right? That's
Yeah.
what.
Just kept going.
Um, yeah. So again, so what you can kind of ask yourself when we talk about this like alignment stuff now. So is spending hours doom scrolling on social media, is that towards or away? So when we're doing is was that just pure procrastination? So just sitting there, just going like, because I've never seen on someone's value list like I really value making myself feel like dog shit and wasting my life looking down and just endlessly scrolling through, workout reels. Again, it's confusing our brain because what we got to just get back to is, are we doing the basics? Are we doing what we care about and stuff? I'm not saying like, there's some really good stuff on social media like Coach Callum _1. But only do things when they feel motivated. So again, is that towards away? Quit every time things don't go to plan? Is that alignment with your values? So again, every time things go shit for me, like I will sit there and go, right, what would a resilient person do in this situation? If I was going to show myself, if I was showing courage, so that's another one. What would I do? An example, I had a talk like not that long ago. I was shit scared of doing it, and everything in my brain was going, don't. But resilience and courage is a value, right? So that's why I said, right, I'm still going to push through. And it might be the same as people going, oh, I'm really scared to go into the gym. Cool. Are you going to let the emotion, are you going to obey the emotion, or are you going to go along with your values?
Mm.
Beating yourself up after every mistake, skipping the gym, like I said, due to anxiety, but equally saying no to meals out with friends because you're so scared to hit your calorie target that your coach has set, and you think if you go slightly over, everything's going to fail. So it's not as black and white as good and bad. So you just got to ask yourself in all of these situations, what can I do? So on average, I'm circling away. I should be circling towards. Um, on average, what are my towards moves? And if you can get like a high percentage on that, then you'll be surprised in 6 months' time where you will be. Um, any like you got one question, did you throw or two questions for it? I can't
No, I
remember.
can't remember what they were now. I sent them to you.
I fancy I've got my phone in the other room because
I know I put my mum on the floor. I think it was something to do with, hold on.
this is what I talk about we talk about discipline, control your environment. The reason I put my phone in the other room is so I
Yes, same.
touch social media. See? And it's the same with like anything else. So it's set your environment up. But if anyone does have any questions, feel free to like unmute. I know it's awkward on Zoom, or you can always you can always send stuff over.
Yeah, you can always DM me as well.
Hmm.
The question was from Kerry. How do you stop binge eating and falling off the wagon after one bad meal? No such thing as a bad meal. That's
You got
my mantra.
you got to lean into like what is the actual feeling that you're kind of having. So a lot of binge eating is kind of linked to kind of shame. And what we've got to look at is no one was born with shame, right? So we didn't, that's just, I'm so like, this is why I'm self-employed. Like, what was the analogy I was going to use? But no one was born sitting there thinking, looking at food as good or bad or having dichotomous thinking. It's something that we've kind of built up over time. So it's through our parents. So research has really kind of like strongly shown that even if your mum, for example, when you were growing up was like, you're beautiful, you're wonderful, like everything's amazing about you, you don't need to change anything, but you hear her talking badly about herself, it's been shown that like we internalize that. So that's one thing that we tend to pick up as kind of like children. So that could be some behaviors. Then it's things such as social media, previous dieting experiences. So somewhere in your head, when you've had a bad meal, you've been taught that if I do this, it's bad. And at a deeper level, the reason that we tend to overconsume then is kind of like either, right, well, I've totally fucked it now, so I might as well continue.
Keep going. Yeah, exactly. It's like the whole cheat meal thing. I used to
Yeah.
do that. I used to literally get weighed on a Monday at Slimming World, and then Mondays were off then. Like as soon as I got weighed, I was like, that was my cheat day, and I could go crazy, which obviously is not good. Moved away from that now, but yeah, I think
Also with, sorry.
no, no, go on.
No, I was going to say like because the other thing, like how many times with previous coaches, right, did you log a bad day?
Never.
Yeah, and this is what happens with like a lot of kind of clients. Like I said, and I did a video the other day about it. Is in the first thing I say to every client is I want them to fuck up.
Yeah, you should be just be really honest about it because then you can see patterns.
Yeah, and
So
sometimes one.
helpful.
Yeah, and if we zoom out, like it's one if we start looking at the averages of stuff, if we're calorie counting or we break it down, and this is the thing, it's hard to answer because it really depends on like when we say binge as well. Sometimes I look at clients and it's actually they're really embarrassed about it because no one talks about it. Like, I did an email like a few weeks back where I was talking about how I ate like five of those giant cookies
Oh yeah.
in the car. sitting outside my nan's house because I used to live with her and I started like PT and in secret. And then stuck in. Or the other thing I did actually was I ate all of her biscuits and then had to like drive out at 6 a.m. to a 24-hour Tesco's to then replace them.
My mum used to do that. She used to eat my dad's chocolate and then go out and replace it.
But most people don't share that, right? Like you don't see like a what I eat in a day video or that stuff kind of happen. So again, we start to think that what I'm doing is abnormal. Because when we really talk about binge eating, I mean, I've had people that, I've had to end up like, um, yeah, but we've looked at their kind of like food diets and my brain on them. But like I've had people that have had like, 11, 12,000 calories in one day. That's binging, right? Having, the average, like Lane Norton put a post up about it the other day. The average calorie consumption in America at the moment is 3,500. The average. So trust me, when you're having days that you think are high, it's probably because you're seeing stuff online around like 1,200 calorie
And
diet.
also, it's high compared to what you're used to. That's the thing. You know what? There's two women in the gym that have just started the gym this morning. Not like they didn't start this morning, but I saw them this morning, and they're like PTing together. It's really cute. Like the PT like goes round or whatever, and they're making all these noises. Anyway, she was really struggling on the leg extension this morning. She was like literally crying about it. She like yeah, she was doing really well. They're a bit older, and I went up to her and I was like, she'd finished the set. I was taking over. I was like, "You're smashing it." And she was like, "Oh, I don't feel like I am. That was so hard. I'm not sure I'm cut out for this." I was like, "Just think, babe, bearing in mind this was like 6 a.m. I was like, 90% of the population, if not more, are currently asleep right now." I
Mhm.
said, "You're doing better than them." I said, "Even the fact that you're here." Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Do you think it's perception? Like what your good is and like remembering, I don't know, me and Callum talk about this a lot. I'm really bad because I'm so into my perfectionism and the to-do list and the habit trackers and all that sort of stuff. I'm quite bad at like zooming out. So Cal will literally say to me, like, you need to zoom out and actually see like what you've done. Like when you said, oh, you've had a really bad week, like you've still, you've done your food diary every day. You've still done the check-in with me. Like you've done this, you've done that. Like actually it's not that bad. I think it's just thinking about like what your, to your point, like your values, like what's the standard you hold yourself to, and then go from there. And then also chill. Because I just think yeah, it's just not that deep. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned this year, especially with everything going on in my life. Like, it's just not that deep. Like, if you're just do it because it makes you feel good, it makes you feel confident, and actually it'll just add up. Like, the more I stepped away from the scales and stopped stressing about them, because actually scales are quite overrated. More about it's more for me, changing your body shape is the underrated bit.
And
And
that's
that's
probably what most
that's
people
that's
want.
been the biggest thing. Like the scales aren't that different for me, are they? Compared, like if we look at what I weighed in January 2024 compared to what I weigh now, like 4 pounds difference. But I look completely different.
Yeah. No, that's what I mean. I'll be
So
honest, I don't even know what I weigh. I don't actually, not for any other reason than I just don't use it as scales in like the bathroom. But it depends on like
it
the
depends on your journey though, doesn't it? Like I'm at the point now where I don't need to use scales as a measure, apart from if I'm in a really clear fat loss phase for like my next trip. So
But I think
like
it's yeah, like where you kind of stand out in terms of it's how you kind of like view things, but I think it's also like a cognitive distortion that we will never change as humans. It's a bit of a protective mechanism, is like negative focus, where we can have like a whole day where like 10 amazing things will happen to us and then one bad, and we just focus on that bad.
yeah,
And
exactly.
you will never change. The problem is you can't change that stuff, as in like the initial feeling. But what you can do is you can train yourself to kind of like step away from the thought. So that's the other thing that I try and teach my clients is like you are not your thoughts. You're two separate kind of things. So take that step back, acknowledge the feeling. Look at it from again, rather than judging it, looking at it from a place of curiosity. And most emotions will pass in 30 minutes if you allow them to. If they continue, you've had the thought again, or you're kind of like you're anxious about being anxious, or you're beating yourself up about certain things. And that's essentially what emotional regulation is. It's just kind of going, cool. Like, I when I logged into here, a little bit of anxiety when I kind of like came in, but that's cool. Most people are scared of anxiety. I'm like, right, cool. That's anxious. It's normal to be anxious, right?
Mm.
But you just don't let it guide your decisions. And that's where it's like, right, the child uses the emotion, the adult uses values. So again, in those situations, that's what, and it's not as like it takes practice. This, it's not something that it's something I'm still working on, and you're always still working on. But yeah, but has anyone got any kind of like questions at all? Like, if you want to unmute.
You got a chat? No, you don't.
No, I don't.
You know what? It'd be better if you had a chat. People hate unmuting.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that now. That's future feedback for you, Cal. I love a little question box.
No, but the thing is, right, like if people are feeling anxious about talking, it's like it's a bit of exposure therapy. There you go.
Making everything a mental health thing.
That's literally how I'm just like, no, I'm just
Like
switching. That's
training
actually a
it.
really good idea, and I probably should have done that. But
Yeah, it's okay. Don't worry.
but thank you everyone for joining. If, like you said, if you've got any questions, feel free to DM. I will also upload this onto YouTube and send it out by email tomorrow. So check your emails if you do want to watch it back. You probably just want to listen to it every day because of all the wisdom shared today. And yeah, thank you for coming on, Becky. I appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks, gang.
Right, speak to you all soon.